Welcome to my parlor. Okay, this is technically the den, but that's even better, for we have a scary story to share. Now huddle around the fire and we'll begin. Yeah, sorry about the hat. I'm cold, so don't knock it. It was either this or a blanket and a toque. Hi, I'm Cypress, and this is one of the most terrifying experiences of my life, so get cozy. At 3 years old, I was terrorized by a gang of ghosts. Yup, jerks. And I know I was only 3 years old because my second brother hadn't come along yet. I was almost 4 when he arrived, but when all this went down, I had one brother in a crib in the room next to mine, and my parents' bedroom was across the hall from me. Despite my tender age, I'm confident my memory of events is accurate, because primal terror sears memory into the brain. I have no knowledge of what may have precipitated it, but one night, lying in my little twin bed in the dark, trying to sleep, all these transparent, glowing figures appeared in my room. I counted. There were 7 of them, all standing perfectly still, but all staring at me. As you can imagine, I was terrified beyond anything. I couldn't move, totally frozen in fear. I was doing that shallow breathing thing you do so that you breathe silently. And I'm sure, although I couldn't see myself, my eyes were as big as saucers. I waited, barely breathing, and nothing happened. They just kept standing there. No movement at all. So we're all just there in my room having this big stare-off. Me, petrified, them, statue-like, but every one of them watching me. And the weirdest part, to me, they really didn't look right. I don't remember what they were wearing that first night, because yes, it changed a lot, but they were all clad identically, and they looked more to me like projected images than actual ghosts. I remember furtively casting my eyes up a few times to see if there were any signs of some projector, maybe on the wall or outside the window above my bed. Not that that would have made any sense, but none of this made any sense. Why were they here? Why were they staring at me? And why did none of them move? Not a fraction of an inch. And why were they all dressed exactly the same? Even as a little kid, even as terrified as I was, my bullshit meter was ticking on this one. I hadn't had a lot of experience with ghosts at this point. Mostly I'd been visited by deceased family members. But I felt like I knew what a ghost was supposed to look like, or behave like, and this wasn't it. It didn't add up for me. But I was still scared out of my ever-loving mind, and I just lay there, too frozen, even to shiver. Even though I could feel them staring at me, I don't remember ever seeing any of their eyes. They usually had some kind of mask on, but not always. The thing of it was, I was genuinely too afraid to meet their gazes. Like, if they locked eyes with me, maybe they'd have some extra power over me. I don't know. I didn't know the rules of engagement. So I just kept laying there, freaking out. I had to pee, probably from the nerves, but there was no way in all the universe I was getting out of that bed and running past them to get to the door. No way. That night, my bladder was made of iron. And we stayed like that. Me, rigidly petrified, them standing there, still as a photo. I tried to guess what their objectives could be. Were they trying to scare me? Were they gonna kill me? Were they friendly ghosts? Somehow, I just knew they weren't friendly. I could feel their amusement at my fear, but also they had this overriding sense of irritation. They weren't happy about something, and if they were the good guy ghosts, why would they be enjoying my terror? I don't remember drifting off. Either the fact that they never moved let my brain eventually relax enough to fall asleep, or I stayed awake until they left at dawn and I just don't remember it. I simply remember waking up the next morning and about jumping out of my skin before I realized I was alive, and the room seemed perfectly normal in the morning sunlight. Did they get bored and go away? Did they give up and let me be? I didn't know. I would come to understand that they only showed themselves in the dark. But that first morning, I had survived, and I was so relieved. I don't know why I didn't tell my mother about them the next day. I might not have been fully convinced I could prove I wasn't imagining things. Kids get accused of that a lot. But I did ask her a bunch of questions about ghosts. I wanted to pick her brain for information. I just figured she'd know all the things about spirits. Moms just know all that stuff, right? I remember getting frustratingly vague answers. Not sure how much of that was because she was busy and not interested in a philosophical discussion on the ghostly state of existence, or how much of that was because I was 3 and had a profoundly limited vocabulary. Might have been the latter. Anyway, that next night, you can probably imagine how scared I was to go to bed. I told Mom I was scared. Could we leave the bathroom light on? Oh, absolutely not. My father was not about to spoil us with exorbitant luxuries like night lights. My mother might have compromised and left it on for a little while until he noticed it, but once again that night, it was pitch black except for whatever light filtered in from the street or the moon. I was not falling asleep. I lay there with anxious anticipation until nothing. No ghosts. I finally fell asleep and then woke up the next morning perfectly fine. Well, that's wonderful. Super relieved. Must have been a one-off. Whew. Scary, but glad that's over. So by the time that night falls around, I'm happy to go to bed. No problem. Well, no. As a kid, I hated going to bed. I always wanted to stay up as late as I could. But what I mean was that I was not scared at bedtime that night. Went to bed, snuggled in, waited to drift off. Well, they were back. Yep. And all of them in exactly the same positions, except for one of them. He stood on the far side of the room, across from the foot of my bed. I could swear he was closer. Maybe just by inches. Maybe he hoped I hadn't noticed, but he was just a little bit closer. Energetically speaking, he seemed to me to be the leader. I couldn't tell you how I knew that. He wasn't visually any different from the rest of them. But tonight, they all looked different from before. They'd had a costume change. Every one of them was in the same old-fashioned prison uniform, white and black stripe, complete with a ball and chain. Cheesy AF, but still completely terrifying to a toddler. So I was scared out of my mind again, frozen solid in my bed. But also, I was trying to sort out why they were all dressed as prisoners. What kind of a mind game was this? And I kept tabs on the ringleader, horrified that he might try to move even closer. So for the second time, we all had this creepy standoff until about dawn when they faded with the night. I probably only slept 2 to 3 hours before normal morning activities picked up in the house and I was roused by the commotion. When bedtime came again, I was terrified, but the room was quiet. And then the night after that, I had unwanted visitors again. This time, the leader was just the tiniest bit closer to my bed. Again. And they were, all 7 of them, looking like fire burning. Like their whole bodies were in flames. As scared as I was, that part was just stupid. Like, what are you even going for? Are you hoping I'm irrationally afraid of fire? I don't know. Whoever was in charge of picking their costumes was doing a crap job. And the whole thing went on like this for quite a while. I'm not really sure for how long because as a 3-year-old, I can't say I had a solid grasp of the calendar. But there they were, in my room every other night. And every time wearing different costumes. One time, it was giant puppy dog onesies, like cheap mascot suits. I have no idea. It was creepily effective, because why were all these grown man ghosts wearing these cheesy costumes and just standing there staring at a small girl? Yeah, super creepy. And that one dude just kept inching his way closer and closer. I never saw any of them move, and yet every time they appeared, I had a little less breathing room with that one. And why every other night? What was that? How does that make any sense? I knew weeks were 7 days long, but they didn't readjust their schedule on the weekends. The pattern was consistent. So much so that on my days off, I'd go to bed without fear and sleep soundly without a care. And the next night, dread bedtime with every breath I took. They were dead on consistent with the every other day thing. If only because one of them was getting closer and closer every time. I knew I needed to get the situation sorted out. But if I did anything to deter them from myself, I worried they might then just turn their predations on my little brother. How could I possibly protect him from ghosts whose magical and otherworldly capabilities for harm may have been vast? I just didn't know what they could or could not do to a living person. I had no idea what to do. But the stakes were getting higher, and that one ghost was just about touching the foot of my bed now. And who knows what might happen once he got close enough to grab me. It all came to a head the night when I went to bed, and when the ghosts came, that one was sitting on the foot of my bed. Yeah, I was still as stone in my bed, but internally having a complete freak out. And I could feel his sense of satisfaction. He was so freaking proud of himself. Gloating even. Kind of like the first guy to get the brilliant idea to paint free candy on the side of a windowless van. It was that kind of smug. So I'm in cold sweats. I'm about panicking. And I'm like, I gotta get this figured out tonight. Because if he gets any closer at all, he can just reach out and grab me. And I am not gonna find out what happens then. I have got to get to my mother. My mother will know what to do. She can get these ghosts to go away. I've just got to tell her what's happening. So I'm laying there, yet again subjected to this 7 grown-ass dead men stare down, and I'm calculating a path to the door. They're not expecting me to move. I'm sure of it. And if I'm quick enough, if I can leap out of bed onto the floor fast enough, I could be launching myself through the half-closed portal before they even realize I've sprung. So I lie there, working up my nerve, getting into full battle mode. Like in the movies when all the main characters start loading up on armor and weapons, maybe a couple of hand grenades, but all I'm doing is working up my nerve. And I do it. I leapt from under the bedclothes in the most epic and graceful of movements. I swear I experienced it in slow motion. I think my feet hit the floor once as I bounded like a fleet deer from bed to midroom to door. And I was out. Without looking back, I scurried across the hall into my parents' room, not even worried about waking my father and inciting his fury. Thankfully, my mother's side of the bed was nearest the door, so it was her I was facing. Groggily, she asked me what was wrong, and as clearly and succinctly as I could, I said, "There are ghosts in my room." "Oh, honey," she said, "there's no such thing as ghosts." Yeah, so not cool. My Hail Mary pass was a complete fail. I probably started crying because it was just all too much. Mom, probably not wanting me to wake my father, let me crawl up in bed with her. So at least I had a temporary reprieve. But what was gonna happen in 2 nights when I had to go back to my own bed and they'd be there again and the leader would definitely be within touching distance of me? I was lying there, for now, feeling safe next to my mother, but sad and full of anxiety because I was back at square one for ghost busting. How could my mother not know about ghosts? Well, she did in fact know about ghosts, but she had no idea what to do with the mean ones, and she thought my little toddler ass was just being a little kid afraid of the dark and imagining things. No. I was lucid. And Mom, I know you're watching. Sorry for letting you go under the bus there. So I was lying there next to my mom, pondering all of this, when I see a cartoon witch on a broomstick just fly through the room. Not gonna lie, it looked a little like Witch Hazel from Looney Tunes, but meaner and kind of pixelated. It was weird because I could see it, but I also knew it wasn't real. Like it was just a 2D image meant to scare me. So I sighed and rolled over to face the other wall, and up in the corner of the window, I could see a sparkler burning, like you'd see on the 4th of July. But this almost electric ball of sparky light was burning soundlessly in the window, and I knew that this, too, was not really there. It was an image meant to terrify me. And it might have, but I was lying next to my mother, and I still felt safe next to her, even if she had no idea what was going on. I buried my head under the covers because it was clear that my mother was not going to be able to help me. At that point, I had 2 days before the creepy Seven's next unwelcome visit to come up with some real plan. And I had no idea what to do. Out of desperation and a lack of options, I finally just took the only route I could think of. I would ignore them. I had no expectations of this working. I fully anticipated the possibility of my death, or worse, as a result of this course. But if there were a way to drive them away, I just didn't know it. So, when that dreaded bedtime came, I made sure I'd been to the loo, and in one fluid motion, I turned off the bedroom light and leapt into the bed and pulled the covers up over my face and just stayed that way. I got a little claustrophobic breathing under the blankets like that, but I was like, no, I can suffocate, that's fine, but I am not going to acknowledge these guys. I lay that way for hours, expecting at any moment to feel some creepy, undead but strong hand suddenly grab me. The time ticked away and nothing happened. I strained my ears to hear my brother fussing in the next room, but he was quiet. So if they were turning their interest to him, he wasn't aware of them. I guess I finally acclimated to the stale air under the covers and fell asleep because I was still alive and buried in the blankets when the sun came up. So it worked, or seemed to. I continued to ignore them from under the covers every other night for what seemed like weeks. I never noticed signs of my brother being terrified by ghosts, and they didn't switch nights to catch me off guard. They were just simply thwarted. After a long time of hiding under the blankets every other night, I was dying to know if they were still there waiting for me to scare me. So one night, I worked up the nerve to just peek a little out of the blankets. I saw nothing. I poked my head out a little. Nothing. I let the blankets fall. Nothing. The room was still and quiet and ghost-free. My harebrained idea actually worked. It certainly wouldn't be my last encounter with negative spirits, but for the time being, I had successfully deflected a very serious and chronic haunting. To this day, I have no idea what all of that was about. I have my guesses. I suspect they were first attracted to the house because of my father. Troubled souls attract troubled spirits, and we never really got rid of all the ghosts until my mother got the nerve to file for divorce and kicked him out. Alternatively, I have a very different energy. I'm not like magic or something, but I kind of repel negative spirits. I kind of just have that vibe, and they don't want anything to do with me. So I wonder if these delinquent ghouls were just some troubled, dead, creepy guys who felt a kinship with my father's own troubled energies, and they would have been really comfortable in our home, except for my pesky ass essentially vibrating off key for them. I was cringe to them, I think. It's my best guess that they confronted me with the expectation that they could exacerbate my fear emotion and thereby sort of attune me to a vibe that would be more comfortable for them and toxic for me. Toxic for anybody. And I think their plan, if that's what it was working. That is, until I refused to give them any more of my fear. They couldn't tweak me, and they either left the house or at least avoided me from then on. So, what was that? I don't know, but that's what happened. And that's my best guess at interpreting the madness. As our evening draws to a close, I hope you'll be able to sleep tonight. And I hope you have a very spooky and wonderful Halloween and Samhain. Keep it spooky, keep it wild. I'll see you in the next video. You're in the way for continuity purposes. I know you want to be in it now, but like there's no continuity now. It wouldn't make any sense for a cat to be in bed with me and not notice the ghosts. It just wouldn't make any sense. Plus there was no cats in the house at that time. I know, I was all alone with no cats. It was scary. Yeah. Hi, I'm Cypress, and no, seriously? Across from the foot of the bed. Yeah, I'm filming, see? Are we gonna get a flame on that, or is it just gonna be the puniest flame ever for a little while here? Dude, it's really disappointing.